Click for IB Biology, taking a look at the factors affecting the rate of reaction of photosynthesis. Within this, we will consider the influence of carbon dioxide as our independent variable in laboratory experiments, but then also in outdoor experiments as well under the FACE program. Then we'll take a look at temperature influencing the rate of reaction, and then finally light intensity. There's a PDF of this presentation down in the description below, down here, and there's a quiz there as well for you to take to test your understanding of the theory content. So this is the graph of the effect of carbon dioxide on the rate of reaction, measured here as oxygen production, and then across here we've got carbon dioxide levels recorded as in parts per million in the atmosphere. So to quickly go through the stages, then notice this unusual beginning phase here of the low levels of carbon dioxide, where they are so low that photosynthesis is not actually occurring, and yet we do have respiration. So respiration will be operating in this region here, and so the oxygen production will actually be lowered by the respiratory process. That will be taking in oxygen, but there is no oxygen production from photosynthesis. Levels of carbon dioxide too low. So then section B, as highlighted here, this is essentially in referring to enzyme theory, is that we're increasing the substrate concentration, and so predictably we would see an increase in the rate of reaction as we do so. As we increase the rate of carbon dioxide in our experiment, we pass the levels which are characteristic of the atmosphere, and yet we can go further. So that would correspond to the dotted line here, and that will give us a measure of an approximation of the rate of photosynthesis at current carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. But the graph suggests that should we increase the concentration of carbon dioxide to these levels here, then we can actually start to increase the rate of reaction even further. So this suggests that photosynthesis could be faster with higher atmospheric levels, which of course has interest within the context of climate change. These levels here in zone E approximate to the point on if we have a graph of the effect of substrate concentration on the rate of reaction, then we're approaching what in this zone here, what is called saturation levels. So the enzyme is now virtually saturated and the rate of reaction begins to level off, which is an enzyme concept, the competition for the active site. Ultimately, of course, we can turn the carbon dioxide levels up to their maximum and measure the ultimate rate of reaction, which might correspond to some level over here, but these levels are not achieved because other factors limit the rate of photosynthesis, such as temperature and light. We'll take a look at those next. There are, outside of the laboratory, there are experiments conducted in open air, which are called the fresh air carbon dioxide experiments, or FACE for short. Some of the first ones were begun in Oak Ridge in the United States, in which within the locality, within a restricted location of plants, carbon dioxide levels were artificially raised, pumping carbon dioxide into these zones to determine whether or not these upper sections of increased rates of carbon fixation can occur, and indeed they do. However, as previously stated, whilst we might be able to reduce the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere through this upper part of the curve, they are limited by factors of temperature and light. So let's take a look at those. So the effect of temperature on the rate of reaction is, as you'll see from the shape of the graph, the same as any consideration of temperature on the rate of reaction, because the critical factor is the influence on the enzymes involved in photosynthesis. So as we increase the temperature in this zone here, we get increasing kinetic energy of the reactants and the substrate with the enzyme, increasing collisions, and the rate of reaction increases. However, we know that as we increase the temperature and the kinetic energy, that the stability of the photosynthesis enzymes will be decreasing. And this corresponds to the fall off that we see here. So the temperatures now are so high that the enzymes involved in photosynthesis have become denatured. Slight misspelling there, denatured. And so the rate of reaction will decline very, very quickly. The compromise between the increasing rate and the decreasing stability is where we get the maximum rate of reaction achieved at the optimum temperature, which corresponds to here. And of course, in different parts of the world, under the different biomes, this optimum temperature is different. And then we might consider, what's the influence of increasing light intensity on the rate of photosynthesis? And so we have a graph which is very similar to the effect of substrate concentration. So of course what we can imagine here is that as we increase the light intensity, photosystems 2 and photosystems 1 are harvesting the light, creating more ATP, more NADPH, and the rate of reaction in the Calvin cycle increases. But then we start to reach the point where the light intensities start to inhibit the rate of photosynthesis, and classically this results in a buildup in NADPH, or if you prefer, the reduced NADP. And this was introduced as a concept relating to cyclic photophosphorylation, so it may be worth looking at that video. And so under the stress of high light intensity in this zone here, the chlorophyll system is starting to encounter functional problems, as the light may be damaging the chlorophylls, may be bleaching the chlorophylls, and we may be inhibiting the chemistry, the link between the independent and light-dependent reaction, and so we get this maximal value. And so in the consideration of the rate of reaction for photosynthesis, we need to combine a number of factors. There's the carbon dioxide concentration, there's the temperature, and we could also take a look at the light intensity. So these are the three of the big factors, not the only ones. There could be things to do with the availability of various minerals and so forth, but limiting it to these three considerations, the combination determines the rate of reaction based on which one of these factors will be limiting that rate of reaction. The links take you back to the playlist, a subscription to the channel should you wish, and links to the next video.